We're now joined by head coach Mike Neu from California. Mike Neu is in his seventh season with the Golden Bears. He's joined by junior outfielder Rodney Green Jr. and junior catcher Caleb Lomavita. Cal went 24 and 28 last year and finished eighth in the Pac-12 conference. Coach Neu, if you would like to start us with a brief opening statement about your team and the fall leading up to 2024.
Sure. Yeah. Back from last year, I think we obviously weren't happy with the way that the season went, but we did show some resilience and finished up strong, able to make the tournament. It kind of came down to the last weekend for us, but, really happy with the way the team showed some toughness to be able to get in there and obviously give us a chance to get to a regional, even with some ups and downs and some tough parts of the season. But, for our guys to step up late and get in there, that was really encouraging. We do return a lot, this year that we feel really good about, really starting with these two guys, with RJ and Loma. They had, RJ got a chance to play with Team USA, awesome opportunity for him. Loma was a reserve, didn't get a chance to get that call, but had a great summer out in the Cape as well. And we pretty much, run everything through these guys, which is great. And then we have some other older guys that are back that we feel like have a chance to step up. Max Handren had an outstanding year for us as a JC transfer. Big year, probably, played better than we had expected. We expect him to do well again. Carson Crawford had an impact year and has continued to get better. We also have some freshmen that we feel really good about, and some other guys as well that have a chance to make an impact. Probably the freshman up the middle with PJ Moutsaritis at shortstop and Jaron Avankula at second, and Ryan Taman had a really good fall offensively for us. So we'll have a pretty good combo of some talent with some older returning guys and some younger guys. And on the mound, we'll get Ian May back, hopefully right around conference. We lost him to injury. So, obviously, really, really good up until he got injured. So that'll be big to give us a boost there. Tyler Stasiowski out of the bullpen was outstanding for us last year and will be an impact guy to the bullpen. Our rotation, we're still not set there, but we feel like we're way deeper on the mound than we were last year. Andres Galan finished the year really, really strong. Christian Becerra, had some ups and downs, but pitched some big innings for us. Tucker Bougie has been pitching great for us the last couple of years, and will have a bigger role. And then we'll have some freshmen and some new guys, some transfers as well that can definitely help us there. So we feel really good. We had a good fall. We were able to stay healthy. Feel confident going into the season. With the experience that we have and some adversity that we've dealt with in the past that we feel like has made us better. Feel like the culture that we've created and the expectations are really good. And I think everybody's bought into what we're doing. So I think we're really excited, probably like everybody is at this time of year, but there's definitely some things to be excited about. And I think we'll have a team that will be really fun to watch, with the talent, the competitiveness that we have. So, I think, a lot of positive things, going into the season, and definitely excited for where we're at right now.
Thanks, Coach. We will open it up to questions, and we'll start with Shotgun Spratling from D1 Baseball.
RJ, the experience with the collegiate national team, what was the biggest lesson that you learned, and how have you been able to kind of implement that into your game this offseason?
Yeah, the biggest thing for me was mainly being able to go make the connection with those guys. And, a lot of those guys are really awesome, really good people. I got to know, I got pretty close with a few guys over that summer. And, I realized that was something that, I really want to focus on this year. For me, it was being able to go out there and make the connection with those guys, bring it back, and be able to have these conversations with, some of my teammates, and mainly the freshmen that are coming in, just so, they're ready, just so they understand like what they're getting into. Because, obviously they're playing a bunch of grown men. So being able to, change their mentalities, keep them focused and help them compete at all times. So that was the biggest thing for me.
Caleb, what do you guys have to do to take that next step to get over the hump and get back to regional?
We talked a lot this year about improvements, taking it a day at a time. We have a daily free throw sheet that we have right outside of our locker room, and it's each individual's just goals for the day. And if you continue to focus on those little goals and details and minute things, then I feel like those things just add up, and without you even seeing it, it's going to show when we get on that field in the spring. And that's pretty much things we've been focusing on.
Our next question will come from Brian Davis. Go ahead, Brian.
Hey, hey, Mike. Your thoughts coming into this year? Knowing this is going to be the final year as the Pac-12, and you guys and Stanford are going to be heading to the Atlantic Coast Conference, known as the ACC, a very powerful conference with perennial powerhouses. Of course, you pitched at University of Miami on that championship team in '99. Which this year marks, I believe, the 25th anniversary of that team beating their longtime rival Florida State in the championship game at Rosenblatt Stadium. What are your thoughts with Cal moving into the ACC next year, the final year of the Pac-12 conference for baseball?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of bittersweet. You know, the Pac-12 conference is such a great conference and, you know, so historic when it comes to baseball. And, you know, obviously being in the last year of the conference, you know, it's exciting that we know that and we have a chance to play, you know, for a championship in this conference. But, you know, obviously going to miss that regional competition and the things that we have there. But, you know, looking forward, the ACC is a great baseball conference. I mean, it's one of the best in the country, and the competition level is extremely high. There's some great places to play. You know, obviously, like you said, you know, getting the chance to play Miami is going to be personally, you know, a cool experience to have that. We do have our 25th reunion the first weekend from that championship team that I'm obviously not going to be at, but you know, there's a lot of history and great things in the ACC. So I think, you know, it's kind of a weird situation. You know, definitely sad to see the Pac-12, you know, not be there. It's amazing conference, but excited for the future and the opportunities. There's going to be some great opportunities for us to, you know, play against great teams in that conference. So I think there's some excitement there, no doubt.
Our next question will come from Eric Sorensen.
Hey, Coach Neu, good to see you, man. Just looking at your preseason questionnaire for D1 baseball, two players kind of jumped off. I know you got a lot of guys coming back, which is great, but two players kind of jumped off the page. Wanting to get your thoughts on the transfer dudes, Alec Rich and let me get Luke Short. Just what do you think that they'll be able to accomplish, you know, stepping up to Division I baseball? Do you think they're ready for that step?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's interesting. We had Cade Kretschmar last year from Dartmouth, and you know, you don't really know what to expect. It's obviously a different environment and a different level, but he was, you know, got off to a slow start and then had a huge year, you know, for us. And I think both of these guys are capable of you know, doing that. I think there's a little bit of a transition period. You know, obviously for Alec, you know, the pitching is a little bit different, but he had a great fall. I mean, he's had some really good at bats. He's very mature. He's a great teammate. You know, the things he's got speed on the bases. He's got some real tools. So, you know, if he can adjust, you know, to the level of play, which is going to be a little bit more consistent than he's used to, I think he's got a chance to have a great year, and that's exciting for us. And Luke is similar. I mean, you know, obviously pitched at the Division II level, was dominant, you know, there. He's had some great outings for us, and you know, obviously a left-hander with some real stuff is always great to have, and he's going to make an impact, you know, for us in some way. There's no doubt. I mean, his stuff is really good, and you just hope that level transitions quicker, because there's a transition period. There's no doubt. It's just a little bit different. The guys that are here are used to doing it. We have another guy, Tom Mayer from William and Mary, also, who, you know, was really solid for them. So I think, you know, we have three of those guys that, you know, we feel like are mature, experienced, you know, and you just you hope that this you know, transition period, you know, comes quicker with success. And if it does, you know, they all three have a chance to make a big impact this year. And we're definitely hoping for that because, you know, obviously having that experience has proven throughout the country that it's definitely helpful.
Yeah, and just to follow up, I got to ask this while you got those two studs next to you. What's it like having those two guys on the team? And are you sure? I know they're going to go up high in the draft this year. Are you sure you can't talk them into another year? Or hell, maybe with COVID, maybe they have 2 more years after this.
Yeah, that's going to be tough to talk them into that. But I will say, I mean, it's yeah, I mean, as good and as talented as these two guys are on the field, you know, their character is outstanding too. They're great teammates. They're great leaders. They have great work ethic. You know, so they're going to impact our program. Obviously, they already have impacted our program, but they will again this year. But it will be lasting for years to come because of, you know, just the way they go about it every day. You know, how they show up in the weight room, on the field. You know, RJ even talked about it. You know, I mean, you know, he's talking about his experience. Obviously, is going to help him, but he's talking about, you know, helping some of these other guys with what he's learned in Loma is exactly the same way. So they're, you know, they've been great. I mean, they're my go-to guys. You know, if we need anything, you know, anything that we need to do as far as, you know, culture or, you know, attention to detail or discipline to execute, you know, they understand how important that is and they've been through it. They've seen the failures and successes, you know, so I'm going to miss them for sure. And, you know, anytime you have guys like that, it's, you know, it's sad to see them go, but, you know, going to, you know, embrace each day that they're here and hopefully, you know, just like Loma talked about, hey, we're just going to take it one day at a time, try to be the best we can be today. And I'm going to kind of treat it like that, just being around these guys too, so we can, you know, enjoy the time that they're here. But, you know, hopefully things work out and, you know, they get a chance to go as high as possible in this draft coming up.
Shotgun Spratling, you have another question? Go ahead.
Mike, I believe you said that Ian, you're expecting him back around conference play. Did I hear you correctly there?
Yeah, that's right. You know, he's going to start facing hitters here in the next week or so. So, you know, we just want to make sure we don't rush it. We'd like to get him back once and, you know, keep him. So I think, you know, we're trying to be as conservative, but also aggressive as possible, find that balance to where, you know, he can come back and be ready to go. And, you know, obviously he's not going to be throwing, you know, a ton early on, but hopefully we can progress him and put him in some situations to be successful. And, you know, by the time we get midway through conference, you know, you hope he's feeling pretty good as far as his build up and, you know, all the things he needs to do to be successful on the mound. But he's been doing really good. The rehab has gone outstanding and, you know, he feels really good right now. I think we actually have to kind of dial him down a little bit to make sure that we give him the proper time from a medical standpoint to be back, but he's had no setbacks. He's been really good and he's pretty much full go right now. I mean, if we wanted to, we could probably start him at the beginning of the season, but you know, I think we want to be smart about the way we go about it.
How do you kind of handle the vacancy there at the front of the rotation? That was something that you guys obviously struggled with a little bit last year when everybody kind of gets bumped up a spot.
Yeah, I mean, we have, you know, we have 5 or 6 guys that we feel like, you know, are capable of, you know, giving us some bulk innings on the weekend. I think we're still, you know, competing internally a little bit with how that's going to work out. You know, we probably don't have, you know, outside of, you know, May, what he was doing before he went down, you know, maybe just the guy that's going to just absolutely dominate with stuff. But we feel like our, you know, our ceiling or our floor is way higher. And we got some guys with some experience. So, you know, I think, you know, obviously the pitch count's early, you know, we're not, nobody's going to be throwing, you know, complete games the first couple weekends. So we feel like we can, you know, still get some guys out there, get them some experience, give them a chance to give us a great, you know, outing. And as we build up, we can kind of see what, how it's going to shake out a little bit. But I think the good news is we have some options. We have some guys we have a lot of confidence in. We have some new guys. So, you know, we'll have to kind of put it together the best way we know how to help us win games. And then, you know, hopefully it'll sort itself out a little bit until we get, you know, May back. But even when we get him back, you know, it'll be that way a little bit, you know, throughout the weekend. But yeah, feeling pretty good, you know, about the options that we have, you know, in comparison to, you know, where we were at last year, where a lot of guys were, you know, gaining experience as they're playing in Pac-12 games. And, you know, that recipe is very, very tough at times. There's just too many good teams out there. And I think we've gotten over that hump with a lot of these guys and have a little bit more experience and a little bit more, learning from those failures, to where there's a lot more confidence. There's a lot of guys that, are ready to go compete. So it'll be exciting. I mean, I think excited to see how these guys respond.
And for each of the players, what's the area you tried to attack this offseason to improve your game the most?
Yeah, for me, I would say the biggest thing is being able to be, just consistent. For me at the plate, the biggest thing is just like being able to, stick to my approach, stick to my plan. So that's been the biggest thing for me. And also, just being able to, for me, it's I feel like defense is something that, is really going to be able to help me out a lot. Obviously I love to go chase down baseballs. I've done it all my life. So I would say the biggest thing for me is being able to, get more comfortable with, being able to take deeper routes to the baseballs or on those balls that are, that are hit pretty well down to the fence. And, at this part, Evans Diamond, a lot of stuff, Stewart Stadium, the wind can get very crazy. So being able to take, just crazy fly balls and making sure I'm focusing in on those things are going to be very important.
And I think that my big focus this fall and beginning of the spring was just play with no fear, do things that I normally wouldn't do, especially on the field, after practice, before practice. And when I let my natural ability to take over without having any thoughts in the back of my head of failing, that's when I succeed the most. And I hope that the freshmen and younger guys take that from me, because they also, when they play loose, they're one of the best players I've ever seen. But I think that if this team can play with no fear this year, we can go really far in tournament.
Is there an example for you, Caleb? You mentioned not just on the field, but before getting on the field of going with no fear. Is there, are you attacking a bee's nest? I mean, what are we talking about here?
Calling out people, challenging them to things before practice, early work, staying after later, even in the weight room. I mean, when you start to challenge people and bring out that competitive side of them, you get better. Iron sharpens iron. And when you do that on the daily, then you'll see people come out of their shell a little bit. And like I said, do things that you weren't even thinking they could do before.
Our next question will come from Ben Parker. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, shotgun kind of took my question about what you guys are most working on, but I also was kind of curious if you guys could just talk about the relationship you guys have with Cal softball and just kind of what that dynamic is like. Slightly different sports, but you guys both use a stick and a ball to play and a glove. So just kind of curious what kind of relationship you have with the softball team and just kind of what that dynamic is like.
I would say we're not like extremely close to softball, but we see them often in the weight room. So like we're always, chatting up with them in the weight room. I feel like that's the biggest time that we really connect with them. It's kind of like in the morning because they lift right before us. So I would say the biggest thing is like, we talk in the mornings, and then it's kind of just like we get straight to business because they're already lifting, so we're not really saying much to them.
What Coach Neu mentioned, he leans on you guys to kind of with team culture types of pieces. What are the tenets of Cal baseball's team culture? Have they changed at all with you being leaders? And how do you kind of instill those in those new guys? Sounds like Caleb might just challenge guys, which is great. How does that work? And what is the Cal team culture?
Holding people accountable. This year has been huge. If you see something that isn't up to our standard that we set in the beginning of the year, that we have goals, then we're calling it out on the spot. And if you don't meet those goals, then that's not a part of our culture. I feel like when we live that day in and day out, we see the constant changings of each other's mindsets, of how we go about the game, and also just how hard we play on the field. I mean, it goes down to the little things, to where our locker room needs to be clean. And I haven't seen that locker room clean in like 2 years. So, I mean, that little things, it's going to change the whole culture of the team.
Ben, it looks like you have your hand up. You have one more question. It'll be our final question with Cal.
I do have one final question. So just for the players, I was just curious, what have you guys most enjoyed about being student athletes at UC Berkeley, #1 public institution in the world? Just what do you guys most enjoyed about being student athletes at at such a prestigious school like Cal?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing for me, you know, obviously the education is really good. But one thing I really enjoy is the campus. You know, I started recently just, you know, walking around more, and just being able to enjoy like the views and stuff like that. And you know, it's also nice to get out there and get some fresh air. You know, outside of baseball. So I feel like that's the biggest thing for me.
And I think that things that are underutilized as a student athlete is the resources around you. You have 40 other guys that are also in the school, some of them the same major. And I think that I haven't utilized it until my sophomore year, but you actually get to talk to the guys that are going through it in the classroom as well on the field. That was huge for me when I finally understood that people were going through the struggles with me. It really helped.
Okay, thank you, Coach Neu, Rodney, and Caleb. Good luck to the Golden Bears as they open the 2024 season at the MLB Desert Invitational against Kansas State, Georgetown, and Boston College.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.